So I read through some of the comments, and it's very good to hear that I have some people out there that are agreeing with what I'm saying. Okay. Forgive me, my voice is kind of deep because I just got up not too long ago. It kind of takes my voice a while to get into its normal tone. So I just not really sure what to think. There's a whole lot of different things going through my mind as to all this race mixing agenda. It's so heavily promoted, and not only is it promoted here in the United States, it's apparently being promoted in the UK as well. I've heard several people tell me, or they've told me themselves from the UK through the internet that all this race mixing crap is being promoted over there as well. So there's got to be something to this. And we're at the 26,000 year cycle of the rotation of the planets. I think that's what it is. The 26,000 year cycle where the old world goes into a new world and we go into this new reality. And apparently the old world ended in 2012, and now we're just kind of going from there, okay? 13 years later. Or 12 years later, I think. 12 or 13. But my whole thing is this, and this might sound a little far-fetched, but it's something that needs to be talked about. Is there a possibility that a lot of this interracial race mixing promotions are going on because white people need the melanin in order to sustain life on this planet? Could that be what it is? Because if you think about it, everywhere white people have went on this planet, every single where they have colonized, they interbreed with the people of that land and create a third race. The mixed race people, or biracials, or whatever you want to call it. This happened in India. It happened in Hawaii. It happened in the Fuji Islands. It happened in Puerto Rico. It happened in the Dominican Republic. It happened in Brazil. It happened in Mexico. It happened in Australia. It happened in South Africa. To name a few places. Okay? Now, this is where it can get far-fetched. A lot of these places have these pyramids. On the land somewhere. In Mexico, they got pyramids. In South America, they got pyramids. In India, there's a whole ancient civilization. I'm not sure about the islands. I don't think that they but the Easter Islands have these heads of these ancient looking Mayan type looking heads all over the place. We have some of these pyramids here in I think in the United States in a couple of places. There's just, I'm wondering if white people are really from another star system, and that they might have come here thousands or hundreds of thousands of years ago. Are they the true aliens, and the people that we're living with today, the descendants of their predecessors, their people? Because if you think about it, every single time we hear about an abduction that has taken place, it's always white people. 9 times out of 10, it's white people that are being abducted. I never hear about Mexicans being abducted. I never hear about black people being abducted, except for one. I never hear about anybody in the Caribbean being abducted. It's 95% of the time it's either white Americans or people in Europe. Does anybody find that kind of strange? And I'm just kind of thinking maybe their ancestors are coming back to check on them to see how everything is going down here on the earth. If you watch the Planet of the Apes, I'm talking about the more recent movie that just recently came out, it talks about, it shows how at the end of the movie, it shows how a white woman and an Asian woman basically came from a different star system and came onto this planet. If you watch the movie real closely, you can kind of figure it out. Towards the end of the movie, an Asian woman and a white woman walk out of this craft. I think an Asian woman walks out and the white woman walks to the craft, and they kind of, I think, know each other. And the Asian woman, it kind of looked like in that movie the Asian woman was from a different star system. Now, if you think about it, Asian people are the most intelligent race on this planet. White people probably come in at number 2. Then everybody else is kind of just, existing. Okay, there are some very smart Nigerians too. I think the Nigerians and the Zimbabweans pretty much take the crown in Africa for being some of the smartest people. Okay, because Nigerians are pretty up there. I have taken that into consideration, that maybe when white people keep talking about all this extraterrestrial occurrences that are happening on the planet, 9 times out of 10 they're the ones being abducted and taken up and examined and implanted with these implants and impregnated and all that stuff. It's always white people. If you go to Europe and you look at some of those cathedrals over there, how does anybody get the knowledge how to build that stuff? And then when you look into the history of who built these creations, you can't find nothing on it. The Taj Mahal, there's nothing about who built the Taj Mahal, but there's a writing that's up on the wall that says something to the extent of the person who built this is not from this planet. Something to that extent. It says that. And then a lot of the I'm not going to say a lot, but there's a few buildings in Europe that were built from people who can't be traced. There's no history behind it. There's no name of who designed it. There's no record of anybody who had anything to do with the construction of some of these cathedrals and other buildings that are built with such precise precision. And if you see some of this stuff, there's no way people living back during the Dark Ages could have built a lot of these buildings. And who put the heads up on Easter Island? How did well, I'm not going to remember the name of it, but there's just a lot of stuff over in Europe. If you go out into the rural areas, these large rocks that are placed up, that these large Stonehenge, I guess, or I think that's what it's called. How is that possible to lift stones that with that magnitude of weight? These stones weigh tons of weight behind them, and they're several hundreds of feet high. And so how did these people move these stones to where they're at? I mean, and so one day I was watching, not too long ago, this documentary that talked about some of these people being abducted. A couple, a woman and her husband, talked about an abduction that took place where her husband saw a UFO land somewhere out here in the United States. It was in a very forest type area up in the mountains. And he talked about how these white-skinned beings were on this craft, and they abducted him and took him up, done a few things to him, brought him back, and that they wore these black, very close-knit, tight suits, and that their skin was pale white, and they were allergic to our sun. So they had to protect their skin with these with these special suits that they wore. And these suits almost kind of were like protectors of their bodies, okay? And they were very close-knit and snug, fitting, but they were allergic. These people were allergic to our sun. If they hadn't, the woman that was explaining it basically said without those suits, they wouldn't, in so many words, they wouldn't be able to come out in our sun and exist, because the sun burns their skin. Okay? So my thoughts about this, I'm thinking maybe white people are the descendants of these people who came thousands of years ago and set up their destination, or set up their living quarters on this planet. Maybe they somehow destroyed their planet because of all the wars that they probably had going on up there. So they had to relocate to this planet. And I'm thinking they might have lived on the moon or Mars. It was one of them, if not both. And apparently they sent one person to get things together, and I guess maybe that one person was the first one to step foot on this planet. I'm not sure. And that person saved their people by bringing them here. Okay? And I'm thinking that could be who Jesus is. Maybe he's the one that made it all possible for them to relocate to this planet. Maybe he's the one that might have came here first and made it possible for the rest of them to come, because he came first, and through him all of their people were saved. That could be where Jesus comes in. But I'm not saying that that's written in stone. I'm just saying that could be a possibility. And if this woman was basically saying in this documentary, going back to the documentary now, if this woman was saying that these beings had to wear these special suits because their skin was allergic to the sun, then wouldn't it make sense that if they're coming on this planet, they have to breed with the people that are already here in order to create an offspring that then goes back into their race and breeds with their people, and eventually that's how they get the skin protection? Because if by breeding with the original people, that's how they get the melanin that they need to be able to sustain life on this planet. So could that be what's going on here? Maybe white people descend from some other star system or planet or whatever, and maybe every 10 years or every 10 generations they have to reproduce back into the black race, because if they don't, that melanin can only last up to 10 generations. So once that 10th generation comes about, the women are probably programmed to breed with the men of the planet so that they can then have children with them that will then go back into their race and breed with their people, distributing that melanin all throughout their genes. Because that's kind of what it seems like it's happening to me. Everywhere white people go, they create a third race. They went and bred out Hawaii. They went and bred out Mexico. They went and bred out South America. They went and bred out Canada. Everywhere on the planet they have gone, they have completely bred out the Aboriginal people. And now they're starting in Africa. Well, they've been into Africa and done it. That's probably how Egypt came about, because they set up the main pyramids over there. That's how they took over North Africa and Egypt, and now they're trying to get in they have gotten into South Africa now. So it's just going to be a matter of time before the middle section of Africa is going to be bred out. Then life is going to end on this planet, because once the main original people are bred out, that's it. Once you start, meddling in with their melanin and if you keep breeding with them, then eventually it's going to thin their melanin out more and more and more. It only takes a couple of times to breed yourself completely out. Okay, like if I'm 30%, I'm in the 30% range of European. So if I went and bred with a white guy, my baby is going to be probably around 75 to 80% white range. So that's practically bred out. In other words, my baby would be white appearing. Okay, I could actually have a blue-eyed, blonde-haired, white-skinned baby, because I'm already in the 30% range of European. Okay, that's why a lot of white guys don't really go for mulatto girls, because there's no point when they do go for black women, which is very rare, because I think most of the breeding is done by white women. I think they've been programmed by their people to breed with darker skinned races of people to keep that melanin in their DNA. And every 10 generations or so, they have to come back into the black race to breed with someone to keep that melanin in their genes, because it only lasts up to 10 generations. It only lasts up to 10 generations. And so they're programmed, once their melanin starts getting low, they're programmed to breed back into the black race so that they can bring that melanin in to distribute it off into their genes. Because if you think about it, everywhere they go, they intermix with the people of that original land. Everywhere they go, they breed. And they breed a lot. It's not just a handful of them. It's a lot of them. And 90% of the time, they use their women to do it. They used to use the men. And I think the men, it wasn't working with the men, because they couldn't maintain white supremacy that way. So I think they went back in somehow and reprogrammed their people and put it into the women. And now all these white women are drawn to black men because it's in their DNA. When they come down and abduct these white people, because it's always white people, when they're doing these abductions, I think that's what they're doing. They're trying to see where the levels of melanin are and how much melanin they need. And these grays that are doing these abductions, I think those are robots, programmed robots that are hybrids. They're basically extraterrestrial, but they are created by these higher beings that operate them, because the robots are going to be coming out here soon, because China has created them, and this is not new, I don't think. They've created the Greys in another image. They're just going to be in another image. When these robots come out onto the market for sale for us to purchase, those are nothing but what the Greys are. Except the Greys have been in existence for a very long time. They're very proficient. They're extremely advanced. And I don't know if they're able to produce or not. I don't think they are, because I think they're built. They're just a very high-end robot. That's what I think. And who's building robots? China. So I think China is in on this. As far as the Greys, I think China has a lot to do with that. As far as the white race goes, the Palladians, which is supposed to be their ancestors that come from the star system Pleiades. If you watch Gaia pretty much tells you in so many words that white people basically are indeed, they've descended from other star systems. Orion, Pleiades. I think some of them are from. They even have named them, and they're not the only extraterrestrial race out there. There's the Greys, which I think are kind of created by China. Because again, I just said China's getting ready to create a very simplified robot for us to help us with our housework and stuff like that, and to be companions and things like that. These AI robots that they're getting ready to release, I think that ain't nothing but an extension of the Greys. I don't think they'll be near as advanced as the Greys, but a more simplified version that can do housework and stuff like that. They're getting ready to release those here. Where did they get that knowledge from to build these robots from? If you think about it, where did China and Europe get the knowledge to create these weapons, these great weapons that they have, these flying objects that they have? They have a very advanced military. Where did they get all that knowledge from? Both China and Europe, where they can practically rule the entire world. I mean, if they want to invade Africa, there's really nothing Africa can do, right? Because China has all these weapons of destruction, and so does Europe. Where did they get that knowledge from? To be able to control dark-skinned people. I mean, because the original Mexicans of Mexico were dark-skinned Indians. They were very dark-skinned. Some of them were so dark that they can be comparable to the Dravidians in India. Okay, so, and that dark-skinned people existed in the Aztecs, the Mayans, the Incas. They were all dark-skinned Indians, or Native Americans, if you want to call it that. They were, if you go back far enough and you look at some of their photos from way back, they were dark-skinned people. All the Native Americans were very dark-skinned. How did they get light-skinned? How did I get light-skinned? White people. And their obsession with interracially breeding with people. And I don't think it's really an obsession. I think it's a necessity, because they apparently need melanin in order to survive. This is why they go from one nation to the next, breeding out the natives of the land. And it's just going to be a matter of time before Africa's bred out. And then that's going to be it for the planet. Because once you breed out Africa, the original people, there's no melanin left. So what are your thoughts on this? I mean, apparently, I guess they're trying to relocate to other planets, but I'm not sure if they're going to be able to withstand the terrain on these other planets, because they don't really have the body, or they don't really have the build to be able to sustain life on these other planets, because you have to have a certain type of DNA in order to be able to withstand life, to sustain life on these other planets. And they're trying very hard to relocate, because I think their time is up here on Earth. But I think they're really trying to go back to Mars, but there's no water, because whatever they did on their planet, they blew out the ocean. They completely, I think with these nuclear bombs that they have, they blew out the ocean. And there's a whole body of water just floating around in outer space. Because they, with these wars going on up there, they completely blew the water out of their planet, and that's why they had to relocate. And they tore out the ozone layer. Same type of shit that they did that's going on here on this planet. How our ozone layer is now destroyed. But, I mean, if you really think about it, that would have to be what their obsession is with race mixing. They have to have melanin in order to sustain life on this planet. I want to hear your thoughts on this in the comment section. I know this is a little far-fetched, but something's got to give here, because if you think about it, I mean, there's no other way to swallow all this. That has to be it. They have to have melanin in order to survive. That must be their reason for all this race mixing. And now that this 26,000 year thing is up, it's time for them to breed back into the original races, because it's time for them to remelanate their bodies again. And if black men and black women stay together, they can't do that. Black men and black women have to be apart in order for that to take place. Please leave your comments about what you think about what I said in the comment section. Maybe I can post up some videos that talk about what I just talked about. I'll try to find some, but it's all over the History Channel. If you watch the History Channel, they talk about this stuff all the time, about how the beings on this planet are hybridized beings that were basically hybrids, because we're half original and half extraterrestrial, because that comes from these white people coming out onto the planet, because they destroyed their planet with all the wars going on, because they can't get along with nobody. So now they've relocated to this planet, and now they're down here, doing the same thing they did up there. But yeah, I think they were the natural inhibitors inhabitants of their planet, which is must have been a very cold environment. That's why so many of them are very cold-blooded people, because they can withstand cold environments, and they like a lot of snow, and their skin is a lot thicker than ours, because wherever they're from must have been a very cold climate. And another reason I think that gives them away is their aging. They age almost 20 years faster than dark-skinned people. How is that possible if we're all from here? But it makes sense, right? If you go to another planet, if you're not used to the gravity on that planet, then yeah, your skin is probably going to age a lot quicker than the original inhabitants of that planet. That's why they age 10 to 15 years faster than we do. I mean, there's no other way around it but to just accept the fact that white people are the aliens. They are the descendants of their forefathers. And even though we all might have a lot of their DNA in us, they were the ones that came out of the sky hundreds of thousands of years ago. It would have to be. Because this obsession with race mixing, this obsession with black men that a lot of black women have, the ability for them to build the buildings that they build, the structure, the architect, that shit is highly advanced. If you look at some of their cathedrals that are in Europe and in different parts of the world, all built apparently by them. These people are not from here. Okay, let me know what you guys think. And again, you might think I'm out there. You might think that this is far-fetched, but if you really think about what I'm saying, if you watch some of these movies that Hollywood is putting out, they're pretty much telling you in so many words that they're not from here. I don't know how more frank that they have to be about this with Gaia and the History Channel. I don't know how more clear they have to be, but they're basically telling us in so many words they are the sky people. They're the ones that came out of the sky. They're basically the fallen angels. Go ahead and leave your comments in the comments section, and I'll talk to you guys a little bit later in another video. Thank you.